So we're going to go ahead now and we're going to finish up the knife by creating basically the last parts here, which is to finish off the blade and make the sharp part on the back of the blade and on the front. So let's go ahead and do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude the polygons that are on the back side of the knife up here to form this part that goes up here, this sharpened end. So let me hit F12 on the keyboard, go over here to my camera viewport up here. I'm going to hit F12 there, and I'm going to come in here and start to get some of these polygons. Let's see. Where should I start? I'm going to go to raycasting polygon mode. U on the keyboard is a shortcut for that. I'm going to select this polygon, hold down shift, select this one, this one, this one, and of course this one here on the tip. Okay, once I have those polygons, let me go ahead and switch back over here to my right side view, and I'm going to hit Control D on the keyboard to extrude. Then I'm going to hit V on the keyboard to activate the translate tool or the move tool. I want to switch over here to global mode and turn on COG. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this out this way like this. So it's pretty simple. Okay, now we did that, we have some more geometry here to play with. So the next step is to come in here and tweak some of these points and get them into position. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to hit T on the keyboard to switch to point mode. Then I'm going to hit F12 here to maximize this view. And I'm going to start to move these points over here and start to get them in position. Position them a little bit better. Because obviously when we extrude, they're not going to be in the right position. So we'll just come in here and we'll fix this up. Place it about right there is pretty good. Do a quick render region of that. Again, holding down the Q button on the keyboard is the way to do that. And there we can see we have that nice knife edge, but we haven't sharpened it yet. We're going to get to that in a moment, however. Okay, awesome. I'm going to hit F12, come back to my camera viewport over here. And now what I have to do is I have to extrude the backside piece over here. So let's go to raycasting polygon mode. U on the keyboard again to do that. Select this polygon up here, hold down shift. Let's go ahead and select all these polygons that run along the bottom of the knife here. Okay. Once we have all those polygons selected, let's jump back to our right view here, so it's just easier to see this and work with this. I'm going to hit Control D on the keyboard, activate the move tool. Again, V for Victor on the keyboard is the way to do that. And I'm just going to bring this out like this, get the rough shape out. Then I'm going to go to point mode and I'm going to start to position these points correctly. And I'm just using the image here as a guide, basically, to help me position these points correctly. I want them to be placed exactly where they're supposed to go. Do a quick render region of that. There we go. Now that's looking pretty nice. Okay. Down here we have to do some tweaking. We can see we have a pretty strange effect there with the sub-Ds. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to fix that. Hit E on the keyboard to switch to edge mode, and let's drag a selection right here in this middle area so we can select this entire ring of edges. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to split edges with split control, and I'm going to move that split up like this, very close up here, just like that. Okay. Now what I'm going to do here is a little bit tricky, so you got to be careful on how you do this part. I'm going to zoom in pretty close. Let me close that PPG. What I want to do is select only the edges over here. See, because if I select these edges over here, I'll end up selecting the edges that belong to this area, and that's not what I want. So to get away from that, let me go ahead and downres this by hitting the minus key on the number pad of the keyboard until I get the lowest resolution mesh, which is this one right here. And I want to make sure that I select these edges right here and these edges that are down here. It looks like there's one, but there's actually more than one. So it may be tricky and it might look like there's just one edge down here, but there's actually two. Okay, so what I'm going to do is make a selection right here and select all of these edges. And now it looks like nothing happened, but what I actually did was I ended up deselecting the edges that belong to this area up here. So now I'm going to hit the plus key in the number pad of my keyboard to switch back to the subdivision mode. I'm going to right click, go to split edges with split control, and I'm going to move this split toward the edge over here to sharpen that up real nice. Okay, great. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select all these edges right here. I'm going to right click, go to split edges with split control, and I'm going to move this split downward like this, practically touching but not quite touching that bottom area down there. Close the PPG. Okay, pretty good. Now let's make another one. So select these edges again, right click, go to split edges with split control, and move this split down to sharpen that up real good. If you need to zoom in, go ahead and zoom in here. And you want to get those edges real close to the bottom there, really close. And that's going to close the deal down there for us. Let's see how that looks. Okay, not bad. Just like the image. Awesome. Okay, so we've got most of the knife done, most of the blade part of the knife done. All we have to do now is do some tweaking and some detail work, and we'll be pretty much finished with this thing. Okay, so the next step is to add some of the details and to detail the sharp edges. Because right now, if we go to our camera viewport here, and let's say we zoom in on some of these polygons over here, say these, you notice that the edge, although it may look like it's kind of sharp, it's not as sharp as it can be. So right now, we're going to take some measures here to fix that. We're going to address that little issue. So let's go ahead and do that. Here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to Raycasting Edge mode by hitting I on the keyboard. I'm going to select this edge here, hold down Alt the middle mouse button, click this edge, and that should select this entire loop or ring of edges that runs along here. All I have to do now is right click, go to split edges with split control. I'm going to move this split down like this, so it's real close right there. I'm going to make that real sharp, that part right there. Okay, let me close that PPG, don't need it. Now I'm going to select this edge here and Alt the middle mouse button, click this edge up here. And that'll select this entire ring of edges that runs from the top of the blade all the way to the bottom, the base of the blade. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to split edges with split control. And there we go. You can see it got both sides. And I'm going to move this up like this. So it's really close to this edge right there. Okay. Then I'm going to select this edge, Alt and middle mouse button, click this edge down here. And it should select basically the same ring again, because we're going to do another split. So let's go down to split edges with split control again. You should be used to using that tool by now. We have been using it quite a bit just to model this knife. So I'm going to move that to about right there so it's nice and close. Keep that tight. Okay. I'm going to do another one. So I'm going to select this edge here. Alt and middle mouse button, click that edge. And that should go ahead and select that entire ring of edges all the way around the knife like that. So right click, split edges with split control. Move this split so it's really close to this other split that's over here. Right about there. So it's really close. You want it to be pretty sharp. Okay, pretty nice. Let's do a quick run in region, see how that's looking. Okay. Alright, now let's go ahead and do this blade part, which we're going to have to sharpen up. So this is what we're going to do. Going to go to edge mode with ray casting, select this edge down here, and we'll alt and middle mouse button click this edge down here. Should work, and that should select the entire ring of edges all around the knife completely, and you can see that it did. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to go to split edges with split control, and that's going to split these edges for me. Let me close the PPG. Now what I'm going to do is, let me down res this by hitting the minus key. I'm going to select this edge, alt the middle mouse button click this edge, and that'll select the entire loop of edges all the way around the knife. That's exactly what you want to have happen. Now I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go to Bevel Components, and I'm going to increase this distance. I'm going to override that to about a distance of 4. Looks pretty good. Just so I get a nice sharp edge. And to see how that's coming out, hit the plus key on the keyboard to switch back to our Sub-D mode. And we can see that sharpened it up pretty good. So now parts like this back area here are nice and sharp, how they're supposed to be. Well, dull, but sharp in the sense that the edges are very mechanical looking. But the actual blade area, as you can see, is flat. Obviously, we can't have that. So we're going to go ahead and fix that right now. And this is how we're going to do it. Let me close this PPG that's getting in the way. Okay. I'm going to have to down res this simply so that I can select my edges easier. Alright. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select, let me see which edges I'm going to select here. I'm going to select, actually I'm going to go to polygon mode, ray casting polygon mode by hitting U on the keyboard. It's just going to make matters a lot easier. And what I'm going to do is come back here and I'm going to start my selection from probably this polygon right here. And this polygon, I'm going to select it. Then I'm going to hold down Alt and select this polygon up here, and it'll select all the polygons in between. Let me hold down Shift, select all these polygons. I want to make sure I select all of these polygons. Okay. I'm going to hold down Shift and select that polygon. Then I'm going to hold down Shift and Alt and select this polygon down here. And it'll select all of these polygons that are in between. It's just a faster way of selecting polygons in XSI. So let me select these polygons right there. I'm going to switch to wireframe mode. And what I need to do is select some of these polygons that are down here. It's going to be a little bit hard to pick them, but they're down there. If we switch over here to shaded view, they might be a little bit easier to see. And actually, let's do something here. Let's go to shading mode over here, to our shading options. Let's go to our display options. And let's go to performance. And let's activate backface culling here. And what that's going to do is any polygons, we'll only be able to see the front of polygons, not the back. So when you see the back of a polygon, it just becomes see-through. And that can actually aid you a lot when trying to figure out what's what over here and trying to get this done. So I'm going to hold Shift and select that polygon in there. That's that center polygon. And it looks like there might be another one right there, so I'll select it. Okay, so now if all of those polygons selected, what I'm going to do is activate the scale tool I'm going to switch to global mode, make sure COG is turned on, and I'm going to scale those in so they become thinner, like this. Real thin. Let me subdivide this to see how that's coming out. So you can see this is before, and here's the after. Not much of a difference, but we're going to see a difference once we move the other set of edges. Okay, so now that that's ready to go and that's in position, what we have to do is come in here and move a few of these other edges. So I'm going to switch back to the low res model, to the low res version. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this edge right there, and I'm going to select this edge right there as well. Actually, let me just go with this edge here. I'll move that edge later myself. There's a reason for that, but let's just avoid problems for now. I'm going to select this edge, this edge, this edge. I'm going to hold down Shift, Alt, and left click this edge to select all the ones in between. I'm going to select that edge right there. And I'm going to select this edge. And there may be a few other edges in here to select. And there are. So let me do something a little bit differently here. I'm going to have to zoom in here real good. Let me select that edge right there. Let me see. Okay, that's perfect. So with that edge selected down there, what I'm going to do is come all the way up here, and I'm going to hold down Shift, Alt, and left mouse button click there, and boom, it picks all the edges in between. What a huge time saver. Alright, great. It's going to be a little bit hard to pick the other one, but that's not a problem. Let's just ignore that for the time being. I'm going to take all of these edges that I just selected, and I'm going to move them back. Making sure that I'm in global mode and COG, I'm just going to take these and move them back like this toward the knife. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to deselect this edge up here by holding down Control Shift and deselecting that edge. And I'm going to move this back more to about right there. Holding down Control Shift, deselect that edge. And we're going to move this further back like this. Now what I'm going to do is right here, I'm going to go to point mode, and I'm going to select that point right there and move it back like this. I'm going to select that last point and move it back. Now the rest of this is pretty much good to go. Now we have to manually come up here, and we're going to select this point, move it back, just like that. Okay, pretty good. Alright. Now we're going to do the same thing to this other side over here. So, very simple, we do the same procedure. Go to Raycasting Edge mode, select this edge right here. We're going to hold down Alt and left mouse button click here while holding down Shift to select all the ones in between. I'm going to hold Shift and I'm going to select this side as well. Hold down Shift, Alt, and left click that edge, and it'll select all the ones in between. So now all I have to do is again move this back like this. And what I'm looking at is this edge here, making sure it comes up real close to these, but it shouldn't overlap it. Do not overlap the edges or you will mess up the model. So hold down Control and Shift to deselect that edge. Control Shift, deselect that edge, and we're going to move this back even more to about right there. Is pretty good. Now I'm just going to select this edge and this edge back here and move these close just like this. Then what I'm going to do is select the 2 points and I'm going to switch to wireframe, and there's the 2 points right there. Switch back to shaded view and you can see I have them both selected. There they are. So I'm going to move these close right about there. That's pretty good. Now over here I've got these edges looking like they're overlapping. So these points, I'm going to grab these points and just manually move them back just a little bit like that. Is pretty good. Okay, that's not bad. Now let's subdivide this a few times and see what we got. Let's render this part here. And we can see now we have a very sharp edge right there for the blade on the back. And on the front, we have almost a completely sharp edge. But the one thing that we have to do is go back and move the other side of edges backwards too. So we're going to do that right now. I'm going to knock this down to the lowest resolution by hitting the minus key on the keyboard. Let me go over here to my shading options and turn on headlight so I can see the back side here. That's off by default. I'm going to select this edge up here. And actually, let me start off with this edge down here because that's the hardest one to get, is the edge that's down here. And let me see this. Just thought I missed something there, but it turns out I didn't. I'm going to select that edge right there at the bottom. I'm going to come back up here. And I'm going to hold down Alt and Shift and left click this edge right there. And XSI will pick all the edges in between. Now what I'm going to do is go over here to my side view, switch to wireframe mode, and I'm going to move these back like this. Okay. I'm going to hit Control and Shift to deselect that edge right there. And then I'm going to move this back. I'm overlapping, so I have to be careful about that. You don't want to overlap. Just want to get real close. And right there, I'm about as close as I'm going to get without messing up the model. So now I'm going to switch to point mode. I'm going to select this point and manually move it back. Select this point, manually move it back. Then what I have to do is go back to my camera viewport over here. I'm going to select this point and move it back like this. Select this point and move it back like so. Okay, so now if I subdivide this, I should have a very sharp edge at the where it's supposed to be on the knife. So let's hit the plus key a few times and let's do a quick render region. And there we go. We have a very, very sharp edge knife. I would not want to meet somebody holding that at the dark end of an alley. Unless I had a bigger one. Then I really wouldn't care. But that's just my personal opinion. Okay, there we go. So if you look, the subtle detail of that hard edge right there is actually there. It's a little bit hard to see. But if you do some render regions and you do them at high quality with some good lighting, you'll be able to see that groove right there, that sort of hard edge that runs along the knife there, where the knife tapers off and becomes this really sharp edge, the cutting edge of the knife. You can see it right there swoop up, and you can see it run along the side and then swoop up right there. That's the whole reason why we put all these edges so close to each other. We have about 3, maybe 4 edges that run along those seams of the knife that define that detail of the knife right there. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to come in here and fix up the top of the knife, this the top right here, this tip. So I'm going to go to point mode. I'm going to select those edges there on the end. I'm going to move them down like this. And I'm going to scale them in real close to each other like that. And then I have some renegade points over here that I need to scale down in themselves too, to get them real close and real tight like that. Okay, and then up here I have kind of a broad tip. That's not too hard to fix. Let me just, maybe I'll move this. I can actually move it up like that and back a little bit, and it'll make a very, very sharp tip up there. That's extremely sharp. That's very sharp. I would not want to be I wouldn't want to be on the business end of that thing. I'll tell you that. Let me go ahead and select these points as well as these points and move them this way like so. Okay, that looks a lot better. Okay, pretty cool. Awesome. So let's do a render region of that. And there we go. We have the bottom part, the bottom detail. We have these grooves or these cuts that go along the knife like this. We have the top cutting part. It's very pointy at the tip. And of course we have the cutting edge right here that runs along the bottom here of the knife. So let's go over here to our side view here. And it looks like we did pretty good. We followed the profile of the knife pretty good. Awesome. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to hit 8 on the keyboard to open up an Explorer view. Hit S on the keyboard to go to a regular scene view here so we can see all the objects in our scene. Now the currently selected object is the blade of the knife. So what I'm going to do is rename it, because the default name it has right now is Cube 1. So with the cube selected here, I'm going to hit F2 on the keyboard and it'll allow me to rename it. So I'm going to call this, say, blade. Down here we have a hidden cylinder and we have a hidden cube. Let me see what this hidden cylinder is. I'm going to hit H on the keyboard and there it is. It's the handle of our knife. So with the cylinder selected in the Explorer view, I'm going to hit F2 on the keyboard and rename it to handle. And then I have a hidden cube over here, and I'm pretty sure I know what that is. Yes, the little handguard piece that connects the handle to the knife blade itself. So I'm going to select that cube and I'm going to hit F2 and rename it to handguard. Okay, pretty cool. Awesome. So here's our knife. Let's do a render region here. And we can see the knife came out pretty nice. And again, the detail's pretty subtle up here with those little grooves and things, but they're there. The details are definitely there. Awesome. So this is a nice high resolution knife that can be used either for some kind of high-end CGI movie or some kind of rendering that you want to do, maybe even just for your portfolio or demo reel. Or you could even use this knife and use it as a high-res model to create a normal map from if you're trying to make an asset for a next-gen game. You can normal map, say, this handle and have the little grip, the little grooves here of the grip appear as a normal map on your low-res object, which is a commonly used tactic or technique used in the games industry. Okay. So there we go, the knife is done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these objects. So I should have 3 selected, and if I look at my selection box here, it should say multi and then 3 in parentheses to tell me there's 3 objects selected. And if I hit 8 on the keyboard to open up an Explorer view, I should see that I only have 3 geometry objects in the scene: the blade, the handguard, and the handle. So now what I have to do is I have to combine all these pieces into one solid object. And the way to do that is pretty simple. With all the objects selected, hold down Alt on the keyboard, then right click on the object and you get a multiple selection menu. Go down to the menu item that says merge. And when we hit that, PPG is going to open up and XSI is going to create a new object that's basically a merged version of all three objects. So let me pin that PPG down. Let me show you what's going on under the hood. If I hit 8 on the keyboard to open up an Explorer view, you're going to see that the blade, the handguard, and the handle pieces are still in the scene. But there's a new object called PolyMesh, or PolyMesh, however you pronounce that. It's short for PolyMesh. And this new object is basically a new object that's all three of the previous objects combined into one. And right now it's at the lowest resolution level, which is why it looks all blocky like that. But that's not a problem. This PPG, the merge PPG, gives us a few options. We can merge the materials and UV information from the previous three objects to this one. So for example, if the handguard was textured, if it had a texture on it of black plastic or whatever, when we hit this button, merge material UVs, the texture is going to transfer over to the new object, and the new object's handle is going to be automatically textured for you. And right here we also have a tolerance value. Now the tolerance value, what this does, it merges vertices or points together. Basically welds them just like a welder would take and weld two pieces of metal or a couple of metallic pipes together. In this case though, I don't want XSI to weld any points together, simply because I have the model set up how I want and I don't want XSI changing that in any way. So I'm going to take that tolerance down to 0. I also don't want XSI to blend anything, so I'm going to leave this checkbox unmarked. Now I have two options here. I can click on this hide unhide to toggle the visibility of the original three objects. So now you can see that they have a yellow H next to the name. That means that they're hidden from view and are no longer in the scene. The only object in the scene is this one, which is the new PolyMesh object, the new knife. Or I can hit the delete key, and the delete key is going to delete all three of these objects and leave me only with the original. Now in this case, it's really your own call. If you delete the objects, you're basically saying, I don't need these original objects, I have a new object. If you ever have to go back, you're pretty much stuck because you deleted the objects. What I like to do is just use the hide unhide button, keep working, and then later down the road, if I don't need them, I'll delete them. But if there's no need to delete them, you really shouldn't, because if you ever need them, you're pretty much going to be stuck. So my recommendation is to keep them and just hide them from view. Okay, so here's the new PolyMesh object. I'm going to hit F2 on the keyboard to rename it. I'm going to call it Knife. And then what I'm going to do is close this PPG. And this PPG I'm going to close as well. Let me go back into my regular camera view here. I'm going to hit G on the keyboard to hide the grid. There's my low-res knife. You can see it's really blocky, but that's okay, because all we have to do is select it and then hit the plus key several times to subdivide it, and there we go. Now we have this nice smooth subdivided version. And if we come in real close here, you can see that nice groove there of the blade. You can see it down here too. It's pretty awesome, very realistic. All this needs is a nice texture and of course a nice environment and scene to render it in, and that's going to look pretty nice. Okay, so enough of that. I'm going to take this guy, I'm going to down res him to the lowest resolution level, which is level 0. Just hit the minus key over and over again until you get this version. Alright, and with this object selected, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to File, I'm going to go to Export, and let's go ahead and export this as a .xsi file. So I'm going to go here where it says .xsi. Now I'm going to get something here with a whole bunch of options. Now the default options, which are these right here, are perfectly fine. I'm not going to mess with any of the default options. These are perfectly fine for exporting this polygon object out of this XSI scene to be reused as an asset later in any type of project. So I'm going to leave all these options at default, and I'm just going to hit OK. Now XSI is going to automatically dump this file into the .xsi folder, which is inside the i3 Tutorials Intro Submodeling project directory, which is the one that we're working in. So XSI keeps everything nice and organized. I'm going to make sure this is called Knife. I don't want a number next to it. And it's going to be exported as a .xsi file. Simply hit OK. It gets exported, and there you go. We're done. So that does it for the knife.